Oh, yep. You're going to hear from three of us just for sort of 5, maybe 10 minutes each, no more than sort of somewhere in there. And it's intended to sort of kick off a discussion that can start from today, and we'll try and put a fence around it at the end of the 17th when we get together on the 17th. And the goal here is over the next 6 weeks, so 4 weeks after that, we're going to develop an action plan, basically, across the 3 networks around what we're going to do for the next year. And we are focusing on the equitable transition element of climate change. How do we support our communities to transition in an equitable way? Not to support our communities, I should say, but support our other stakeholders like the government and councils and perhaps some of our corporate partners and philanthropics and what have you. So we want to set up a plan. We need some specific actions in there. One of those streams of action is how do the 3 networks collaborate on specific projects. So we've got 3 examples of what that could look like. That all 3 may not make the final cut. We're suggesting they do, but they may not. They may not be the. Yep, I think I've covered it all. Just intended to stimulate the conversation. We'll run it the same as yesterday. If people have questions or statements that they want to make, throw them in the chat, and daughter George or I will flag those and see if we can answer them today, or if we can't, then we'll commit to putting something in place over the next 2 weeks to have that discussion well advanced so that we're ready for that Friday. Have I missed anything there, Dr. George? Right, all good. And I think I drew the short straw for being first on the projects tab today. Yeah. Okay. So the first project that could be a collaboration project across the 3 networks. This one sponsored by Community Energy Network is our. We've got a project that's been underway for the last couple of years, 3 years, to put home sensors into people's homes. So just a start at the start. This probably been inspired. This project was inspired initially by that infographic that our 3 networks put together, we think about 4 years ago, about what our collective impact was at the time. Just a one-pager. Then I guess also not far around that time, the new government came in and introduced us to the living standards framework and the wellbeing budgets and that sort of thing. So penny dropped for me. We need to tell our story better from an impact point of view. What's the impacts of us working in people's homes, doing healthy home assessments, putting insulation and heating and vapor barriers under the house, all that sort of thing that we were getting paid quite a lot of money through government contracts and philanthropy to do. And we weren't measuring the impact, government weren't measuring the impact. We needed to take a leadership role on that. So that was the motivation. The glass half empty motivation there is that it protects our funding that we're getting now. The glass half full version is that it increases funding opportunities, both through our philanthropics, but also government, if we can tell that impact story really well. The other motivation there is that it provides us, if we can do this well, it provides us with almost unbeatable ammunition in terms of us working with government policy wonks to change policy, to improve the way that we're working in the space. Okay, so that's a sort of quick background. What is it? It's these. These are the home sensors that we're talking about. There's a slightly newer, better version of that. You can see there's a QR code on one side of it. These particular ones measure temperature and humidity of the room that they're put into. And there's two different technologies here. One is that it sends a radio, it's connected to a radio network around New Zealand, and it sends data packages every 3 or 4 hours. It sends data of every 30 seconds, I think it is, takes a measurement and then sends that pack through to the cloud. The other way is through Wi-Fi, basically, and it does it instantaneously rather than data package. That data then goes into a reporting system that's been put together. There's a lot of detail about how we can configure these two. Basically, you scan that code and you get put onto an app, and you can configure. You can say that it's in a bedroom or a living room. You can say that it's in the bedroom of someone who is elderly or has asthma. And you can say that if the temperature in that room drops below, say, 20 degrees, then that person is being affected by what's happening in that home. So if there's an asthmatic 5-year-old in a south-facing bedroom, then you can configure these to raise a flag when it drops below 20 degrees. If it's a healthy adult, you can say below 16 degrees is the threshold. There's a whole lot of ways that you can configure the system. It gets pushed through into the cloud, and then you can press a button on a dashboard that you get access to. That report has been put together by Otago University. So it's a little bit sciencey, stats heavy, but it's very robust in terms of how it presents that information. And then you can customize what's in that report. And basically that report can be at the house level, the neighbourhood level, or even the regional level. And from CN's perspective, it can be at the national level. And I can push a button, and about half an hour later, I can get a report about how many homes are below a certain threshold overnight, and so causing people in that home to be sick, basically. The outcome that we want out of this is that we can increase energy efficiency, we can decrease energy hardship, and that we can get our people that we're working with, our vulnerable households, ready for climate change. So they can be resilient to either chronic or acute impacts of climate change if energy hardship has been taken off their plate. So if other networks are interested, other organisations are interested in being involved, what do you need? You need a home performance advisor trained staff member or subcontractor. So there's a training program for doing healthy housing assessments. So you need someone that you know and trust, either a staff member or someone in your community who's had that training. You need a funder who can pay for these bits of kit, and will pay for someone in your organisation to administer the system. There's a database essentially there to administer. And you probably also need to have a network within your region of people who are helping people in their homes. So district health nurses, MSD and whānau water navigators, those sort of people. All of that stuff CN can help with. So we're not just saying, here it is, go do it. We can sort of partner you up with CN members who might be neighbours. We can facilitate a connection with whānau water navigators. And Scott, I see a couple of questions there. One of these is between $50 and $60. That's to purchase, and then if it's on the radio frequency, it's $25 a year after that. If it's on the Wi-Fi bit of kit, then there's no cost. It just sits on the Wi-Fi system of the house that you're in. And it's up to you how many you put in. Typically, we're saying 3 or 4 per home. You need to have them in the bedrooms because it's typically overnight is when you get the really bad health outcomes because the heaters get turned off. And if you've got an uninsulated or poorly insulated bedroom, typically if you've dropped below 12 degrees in a bedroom, you've got some serious health impacts, even for a healthy person. Your blood starts to thicken. at that point, and you've got some problems coming. So it's typically overnight is when it's critical. So that's basically it. I probably need to stop talking, but that's the opportunity. I'm sure there's loads of questions, and I'm happy to answer those either probably not in the session, but over the next 2 weeks or on the Friday. It's fine. I think it's Zero Waste Network, is it? The next one?
I think it's George.
Right. All right. Thank you, Gareth. So kia ora koutou. I'm Georgina. I'm the EO for the EHA for Environment Hubs Aotearoa. We have Jen, who is our data coordinator, who's been with us for a couple of months, who's going to talk to you today. She's going to introduce our map. So Jen, hopefully you're there and can unmute yourself and we can spotlight you.
Kia ora. Hi, can everyone see me okay?
Perfectly.
Yep. Awesome. Okay. So hi everyone, I am Jen. I am the new data curator for Environment Hubs Aotearoa. So what I'm going to be doing today is just giving you a little bit of an introduction to who I am and what we're hoping to do with this mapping project, and how that's got potential to be a collaboration tool for everyone in Zero Waste Network and Community Energy Network. So I was brought on to EHA in around April this year. My background was in ecology, spatial ecology and mapping, and I've sort of transitioned into working for nonprofits now, and what my role really is to create an online interactive map of at first the work that Environment Hubs is doing, but also we're bringing in the work of Zero Waste Network and Community Energy Network as well, and also to facilitate any kind of data analysis that is as needed. So at the moment, what I've been doing, it's kind of all very early stages and the map is still in development, but what the map is showing at the moment is just a national overview of the Environment Hubs and the Zero Waste Network and some data from the Community Energy Network. But we're really sort of working on growing that at the moment. So the next, what's coming next for the maps is some regional maps as well. So for all the different hubs around the country, what we're really hoping to do is showcase the work and the impact that they're having, and that can really that can be augmented as well by other sort of aligned projects that are going on. So we're also hoping to collect data from just from all over the place, really, of any kind of work that's going on around the country that's aligned with the work that all three networks are doing. So that can facilitate people connecting in with other people that are doing aligned work with them. So for example, we were talking with the Repair Cafe people, and we were going to be adding that to the map. I'm not sure whether that's going to be happening there now with the lockdowns, but that's just an example of the kind of things that we're hoping to add. So really the point of this map, there's kind of 3 points to it. One is it's a way for the public to get involved with and to find out about the work that all 3 networks are doing. So find out about things that are going on in their area, and how they can get involved, or resources that might be useful to them. A second point of it is a really kind of a storytelling tool that can go into a little bit more detail about the impacts that you're all having within your communities. And what I'll do is I'll show you some examples of what we've been doing in that kind of area, so you can get an idea of what we can do with these maps. And the third is a kind of an analysis and a reporting tool. So it can be used to generate statistics or to understand the work that you're doing in a little bit more depth and maybe uncover things that you hadn't thought about before. So for example, overlaying data that you're collecting with existing data to try and uncover trends that are going on. So what I'll do is I'll just give you a little bit of a quick introduction to what this map looks like at the moment and what we're doing with that. So I'll share my screen. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so you can see now this is what the public will see when they go onto our map at the moment. So this is the public facing map. We can also generate usernames and logins for anyone who wants them, so that you can then sort of see what we're not showing with the public. So you've got these private maps as well, and where you might want to put a little bit more information that might help you with your own analysis that you might not necessarily want to share with everybody. Now let me just, sorry, I'm just going to refresh this. So at the moment we have down the left hand side containers for Environment Hubs, Zero Waste Network and Community Energy Network. So on the Environment Hubs, we've just got some information about each hub and the projects that they do. The Zero Waste Network, we have, that's it coming up there. So when people load that up, you get a little bit of an explainer on the right hand side about what Zero Waste Network is and the work that it does. And you can search for members by their name, address and activity. And then the community energy data we have is all of the community energy projects from around the country. And again, you can click on each one of these and see some details about it. So at the moment, it's quite a basic map, but it has potential to be used in a much more in-depth way. So what I'll show you now is what we've been doing with Kaipartaki project. Oh, why is that not? I think I've logged out of that somehow. Hang on. But yeah, so what you can do as well is you can upload like recording data or any monitoring data that you're collecting from your project. And I have no idea why I've been logged out of this, sorry. I have to log myself back in again. But yeah, so there's an opportunity there to use it for things that are a little bit more in depth and perhaps showcase something a little bit more data intensive. So for example, we've been creating a map for the Kaipartaki project, and hopefully they won't mind us just sharing what this looks like at the moment. So they have been doing some stream monitoring data, and so with different community groups. So they've been measuring water quality in macroinvertebrates. And so when we're loading this data up, we can then see on the right hand side, we've got again an explainer, a little video and some key results from that water quality monitoring. So you can then click on a stream, for example, and see, oh yeah, that's dissolved oxygen and the temperature of the stream over time, over the years that it's been monitored. And so you can then see that, what I'll do is I'll stop sharing now. That kind of data then overlaid with other data that's within the platform, for example, stormwater and wastewater networks could be a really useful storytelling tool and a way to uncover things that you may not even have known about your own projects as well. So there's a really powerful analysis option there. But the way that I see this as a potential for collaboration is really not kind of on its own. I think it's I think what it's really useful for is complementary to other projects that are going on as well. So it's a really great way to showcase some of the things that you're really excited about within these networks. So for example, if you're talking about the home census project, you might want to say, you wouldn't want to put obviously people's private data up on a map like that, although you could use it in the private space if you wanted to do that. But you could say generalize it to a suburb or something like that, and then overlay it with say census data or deprivation indices or something like that, as a way to really tell that story to the public. So yeah, I think I've probably rambled on quite a bit. But yeah, what do you need to do if you want to kind of get involved in developing this resource? Like I say, it's really at the early stages right now, and it can go as in depth as people want it to go. You just need to get in touch with me and send me an email and say, hey, I've got a really cool idea for something that would be good on the map. And we will talk about how to get it uploaded. It's my job is really just to kind of like take the information and the stories that you all want to showcase and get them presented up on it. So yeah, that's about it. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Jen. So over to the Zero Waste Network.
Awesome. Yeah, amazing. Okay, so the next project is a little different. It's about container return schemes, which is kind of coming from a different place. It's a response to a waste issue that government knows about. So we've got quite a few CRS experts on the call from the Zero Waste Network. I see we've got Sue Coots here, as well as Ian Stupple. So they both know lots about this, but today we're going to ask our chairman, Marty Hoffert, to come and talk and give a really quick introduction on CRS. And we'll potentially, like Sue and Ian, if you think there's other things to add, then please feel free to do that. Over to you, Marty.
Righto, Dorda. Do you want to ask me questions, or do you want me to just launch into what a CRS is, first of all?
To give us a quick introduction about what a container return scheme is.
Okay, so a container return scheme, that's the language being used in this country, also called the container deposit schemes, or DRSs, or deposit return schemes, or bottle bills. They're all pretty much the same thing. It's about getting containers back. So basically, a container deposit system or scheme aims to encourage the return of beverage containers by adding a refundable deposit to the price of each container. And this enables higher rates of recycling and refilling. So a container deposit system or a CRS doesn't mean that we're going to refill all containers. It just means we're going to get them back, but it allows for more refilling opportunities. These systems work best when they include all beverage companies and all container types. So you could not have a container return scheme in Auckland. It has to be a national scheme. So if you hop on a plane in Auckland and land in Queenstown, you want to be able to get your refund there as well. They include all container types, and we generally don't set a minimum millimeter or milliliter size. So if you look at your standard beer bottle, it's about 300 mils. So if you said, okay, it's going to include all bottles from 300 mils to 3 liters, some smart person in the beverage industry could make theirs 296 mils and then not be in the scheme. So the one that's being considered in New Zealand does not have a minimum size, because there's little ones that are even less than 50 milliliters. They have to be introduced and regulated by government. At the end of the day, it has to include all beverage companies, all beverage types. What else do you want to know, Dorda?
I also want to know where we're at in terms of getting a scheme in New Zealand. Like, I know that there's a process underway and we don't have an exact kind of model to offer, but we do know some stuff. So what do we know about what it might look like?
Okay, so basically it's already been a couple of years in the works. It was a Ministry for the Environment funding application, and it was a joint application between Auckland Council and the Marlborough District Council. So they put in waste levy funding application to design and develop a container return scheme for beverage containers. So that's how it started a couple of years ago. And basically the project ran between November 2019 and September 2020. So almost a year on now. The container design working group met for a year and was made up of a number of stakeholders, including the beverage industry, including container manufacturers, beverage producers, non-alcoholic, alcoholic, the dairy industry, Maori, local authorities were represented. I was on the design working group representing community recyclers. So there was about 16 or 18 people on the working group. So we had all sorts of sectors of society and the beverage and packaging industry. That group wound up last year, about a year ago now, and that report, which is 800 pages, was presented to the minister at that time. And next month it is September. So I honestly can't tell you where things are at. It's been now a whole year with the working group and a whole year almost with that report sitting at MFE. I don't know if anyone from MFE is on the call, but that's where things are at. So I don't have a crystal ball.
I don't know if they are either, but I think maybe it would be useful to just kind of explain what the options were. Like I think there's different models in different countries. We don't know exactly what the model will look like, but there were at least a couple of kind of key ways of getting bottles back in terms of the potential for drop-off sites or return vending machines. So yeah, what are your thoughts on what it might look like?
Well, the key goal was to get 90 to 95% of containers back. And if you look at container return schemes in other countries, there are a number of ways that people return those beverage containers. You can have a bottle return depot where you drive in with your car, hand your bottles over to someone, and they hand you cash and you drive off. You can have reverse vending machines, which can be located in a number of places, busy universities or ferry stations or bus terminals, where people carrying a few beverage containers can basically put their container into a machine, and it either pays them directly into their account or gives them a chit, or you can donate money to charity. So there's usually three choices at an RVM, or reverse vending machine. You can put your bottles in your curbside collection if you still want to. So about 25% still end up at the curbside because people donate them to the curbside recycler, or have, I guess if you're a high earning lawyer making $400 or $500 an hour, you don't want to spend Saturday morning getting $30 back for your bottles. So you just put them out in your curbside system. So you got RVMs, you got return depots, and you've got curbside still works.
Okay, cool. That gives a good background to the next question, which is how would community groups, members of the Community Energy Network and EHA potentially get involved with this project?
Okay.
Or the scheme when it does happen?
Okay, so there's a couple of ways they could get involved. If you look at, let me just use an example of a province in Canada called Alberta, which actually has about the same population as New Zealand. So if you think about New Zealand, 5 million people, Alberta about 5 million people. It's a little bit bigger in land area, but it's a similar population. They have about 250 bottle return depots in Alberta. That particular province doesn't have any RVMs. They tried introducing them about 10 years ago. That scheme's been going for 40 years. And about 10 years ago, they introduced RVMs, and the public didn't like them for whatever reason. So how would community organizations get involved in this country? Basically, we're going to have a number of bottle return depots around the country. Let's say we had 250. Let's say we had 300, but it could be in that number because it's a similar number that services a similar population in Alberta. Bottle return depots are opened by entrepreneurs, which means you would, if you're community group A, you might rent a space in a semi-commercial industrial area if you don't have one already, and retrofit your building so that you could have a drive-up, drive-through, sort of like banking or takeaways when you go through McDonald's, and have a window, and you simply get out of your car, you open up the boot, you hand your bottles through the car window, they get counted up, they give you the cash, and you drive off. That's the simplest method of a bottle return depot, and there's many, many like that in Canada. Community organizations could also partner and operate reverse vending machines because, again, it's just real estate, it's just space. So wherever that machine sits, I saw one in Sydney that was in a parking area behind a supermarket, and it was bolted onto a 20-foot container. So obviously it was on the supermarket land. So you had three choices when you brought your bottles up to that one. It was number one, pay to your PayPal account. Number two, get a chit for the supermarket. Or number three, donate to a charity. So community organizations, and I would say existing community organizations that are at, that run community recycling centers or CRCs, could easily convert into bottle return depots because they've already got the vehicle traffic and the vehicle movements. They've got forklifts, they've got fadge bags. So they can actually transition very quickly and easily into a bottle return depot. I wouldn't mind Ian jumping in here if you could, Ian, just for a minute. If you've got a comment on how you would see community organizations participating. I don't know whether you want to do that or not.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So probably just a couple of comments really. So when the working group with Auckland Council and Marlborough, the project group were putting together their report, they asked the Zero Waste Network to submit a discussion paper around how it could work, really based around looking at, and what we tried to do was map the current sites and then look at where the gaps would be to be able to deliver that infrastructure. And as you said, it was based around drop-off sites. That's the one. Yep, drop-off sites, local hubs, regional hubs, and a whole range of sites, and potentially reverse vending machines that could be serviced by local groups to make it all work. And that was well received. I suppose all I can really add since then is that we have, as Auckland Council community recycling centre operators, we have regular meetings with Auckland Council. And although I can't speak for Auckland Council, they have said that a lot of the work they're doing, they've got some funding to develop community recycling centres through the Shovel Ready project through MFE, and they're going to develop over the next 10 years or so, probably a site a year. And they're basing those site designs on the fact that CRS will come in. So I suppose they're still quietly confident that the work that they do behind the scenes with MFE will deliver a CRS scheme, and it will include the full range of beverage containers. So I guess it is watch this space. No doubt we'll go through a lot of consultation, but yeah, I think it's positive, and I think you've probably touched on, Marty, and around the benefits to the community. It's a real opportunity to create some revenue through obviously handling fees, but also residents and businesses gifting their containers, which then can be cashed in by community groups.
Dorda, I see there's a chat message from Karen Driver, which I'd like to answer. And it says, Marty, can you mention briefly that a CRS could work with acting as a drop-off for other products, such as other products with product stewardship schemes? And that's actually a very good, sorry, I forgot to mention that, is that a lot of the bottle return depots in Alberta that started as bottle return depots 40 years ago now take e-waste and other materials. So you can bring your electronic waste in. Normally when you're bringing your beverage containers in, they're contained in a cardboard box. And so there's a lot of cardboard recycling. So there's a lot of other add-ons, and that's why community recycling centers are natural places to turn themselves into bottle return depots.
Wonderful. There was a question that's just come through. Given the massive transition that will need to happen as Aotearoa transitions to a zero carbon via power down, is there a risk that community organisations might invest what could quickly become stranded assets?
I'm not sure what a stranded asset is, but
Scott, do you want to explain?
Yeah, I was just thinking, Marty, you know, we're thinking about drive-in drop-offs, and right here and now that would work. But what happens? I mean, the Ministry of Transport have said we must quadruple public transport. We've got to get out of the private car. We've got to move to mass transit systems. So if we're doing the heavy lifting in the community sector to provide a solution here, are we at risk of carrying all the risk rather than government carrying the risk? Are we at risk of carrying the risk of providing something that for what might be a limited period? I'm thinking about how we move away from how we move to the circular economy without community organizations always carrying the can.
Good, thank you. Thank you for clarifying. So with when we're talking about carbon and a low carbon economy, at the moment, our recovery rate for beverage containers is somewhere between 45 and 58%. I'm going to say it's probably closer to 45 or 40%. And the beauty of container return schemes is that when we get back these containers, we've got to remember most of the damage to the planet is done in the production and the extraction of raw materials. It is in making the stuff that we buy. So for example, if we get an aluminum can back through recycling, we only use about 3 to 5% of the energy, and 3 to 5% of the pollution is created by recycling that can. So if we can save 95% or 97% of the emissions and the carbon that's goes into making those cans each time we use them once and discard them, this system will go a long way into reducing carbon. We're still going to be out driving our cars. Our cars are not going to go away in the next 50 years, and we're going to move to electric cars. And a lot of bottle return depots are conveniently located on the way to other shopping. We're still going to have Bunnings. We're still going to have to paint our house and fix our house. We're still going to have to buy groceries, and we're going to still have to drop the kids off at dancing. So I don't think they'll become stranded assets, because as we move into more reuse and repair, a lot of our community recycling centers will grow in number, and we will be using those more than we are now. So I don't see a risk to the community at all getting into this in becoming bottle return depots and other depots for returning items like e-waste and other items.
Thanks.
Wonderful.
That was a great way to maybe segue into the closing off part, because that is what the theme of this hui is about, that transition part of it. And so sort of maybe having that discussion or some understanding about how communities themselves could get organised to provide that transition, and where some of these projects might align themselves with that is what I think is going to become a pretty core part of how we put these together. Just a note, again, we said at the start, but these are just 3 ideas, 3 projects. They're all good ones, great ones, in fact. There's plenty of others that we could do. Just for those who haven't been aware, we're just putting some data together to expand the buyers group. We've been asking some of our members for some pretty specific data about what they do and how much they spend on certain parts of their organisation. So that's another project that's underway right now, is sort of getting into HR and health and safety and banking and finance support and a range of other services that we all use, and putting that into the buyers group. I think that.
Sorry, just going to interrupt on while you're on that point. I might chuck a link to a survey that we've developed for any members out there that are super keen. So this is probably just the Zero Waste Network members, and the CEN members and the EHA members. So if you're not a member, don't try and fill out the survey. It's quite an in-depth survey, but we would love to hear about what other ideas you guys have for the buyers group, and also to base our decisions on actual real data. So it's quite an in-depth kind of look into your finances. It's not an easy survey, but we would love it if there was a few other members that are keen to complete it. So I'm going to put the link into the chat.
Thanks, Dora. So I think the point I was getting to is that, we could have other ones like, let's work out our collective footprint, or let's work out a way that everybody can do their carbon footprint really quickly and easily and keep that current, and, sort of walking the walk, basically, I guess. We could extend that mapping project and have a sort of combined data management system there or something like that as well. But I guess the point here is that please come to us with ideas for how you think the three networks could projects that you think the three networks could work together on. Now's the time, because in the next 2 weeks we're going to be having these discussions, and then straight after that we're going to put an action plan together for the next year. So now's the time. If you've got some thoughts, please let us know. And I think that's basically it. There's no other?
Yeah, I just put the link to the Zoom mini hui. I'm sure you've all been there because you've registered, but there was a great reference to our Thursday mini hui. So I've just put that link there. So it'd be great to see you all coming back on Wednesday, Thursday and Friday for our other fantastic mini huis to get you all thinking about our day of action.
Cool.
Thanks, everyone. And hopefully we'll see you all again tomorrow. What's tomorrow's? Is it collective
action with Billy Matheson?
Perfect.
Awesome.
Right, thanks,
everyone.
Thanks for your time, everyone. Ka kite.